Over 100 years of horse racing history. And your home for what's happening today is Tommy Walski's Sport of Kings.
Today, we'll meet longtime Hastings horseman Glenn Todd. Stephanie catches you up with all the news. Our race of the week is the BC Premiers. Tommy recaps some of the major stakes in racing across the nation. Our salute to the champions, the 1988 Breeders' Cup Distaff. And now here he is, BC's ambassador to the world of horse racing, Mr. Tommy Walski.
Last weekend at Hastings Racecourse, they held the annual DRF and NTRA handicapping contest with the eventual winner going to Las Vegas in January to compete in the finals for $800,000. We had our Howard Jones entered. Throughout the show, we're going to catch up with Stephanie and see just how well Howard is doing.
I'm here at the 2007 annual Hastings Handicapping Tournament, and with me today is Sport of Kings producer and handicapper Howard Jones. Howard, do you have a strategy on how to win today's tournament?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do, Stephanie, and I've paid a fair bit of money to handicappers and clockers at the various tracks that are part of the tournament. And right here, I have the information that they sent me. And I could probably share it with you, but I think it's pretty important stuff, and it's going to help me win today. But if it doesn't work well, I'm going to throw it out, go back to my old Lucky Looney, heads or tails, in or out.
Well, best of luck, Howard, and we'll check back with you throughout the day to see if the Sport of Kings banner is flying high.
Thanks very much, Steph, and I'll be looking forward to it.
As a youngster growing up in Vancouver, Glenn Todd often visited Exhibition Park with his horse-owning parents, Jack and Eileen Todd. It was that passion that has led Glenn Todd into perhaps being this year's leading owner at Hastings Racecourse.
When I was in grade 1, my father would pick me up from school and take me to the track. You know, we went to Lansdowne or Hastings. Like, my mom and dad met at Hastings Park, and of course it was in my blood, and I've been at the races my whole life.
They were very passionate.
They really were. My dad would be the first guy in the gate every day at Hastings, and he barely missed a day. And then they'd spend the winter either in Phoenix or Santa Anita or California, somewhere that all year round they were racing fanatics. I don't know if you know this, but I wrote the handicap in the Columbia newspaper, and I worked for the Daily Racing Form. And my first assignment was to interview Larry Pierce, who the contract was with the Taylor brothers. So I was like 16 years old, first day of the races, like 1962, and of course Larry Pierce rode for the Taylor brothers, and that's when I first met Troy, and we've been friends ever since. So that's 45 years. Even going back when Troy was in Seattle and I was here, we were sending horses back and forth when I trained my own horses. But as I got older and I had to move on really with my businesses, there was a lot more money in my businesses than there was training horses. So then Troy took over all my horses and still is today.
Is it a case that for every time you bring somebody new out here, you're hoping they bring other people out?
Oh, sure. You know, actually, when you say that, we have 2 client days for our clients, one in May and one in September, where we bring out a bunch of our clients, about 200 at a time. And since the yearling sale, 3 of them have bought into a yearling, so yeah, we brought some people out, and now they're there every day. Patrick Kinsella and I go back about 25 years, and actually through some business dealings that we had, and him and I were at a charity deal with the mayor of Surrey about 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to the track tomorrow. Why don't you come out, we'll buy a horse." And here he comes, and we bought a horse, and now he's got about 30, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but he still talks to me. Patrick's a pretty loyal guy and a really good friend besides that. I was, I got pretty sick this spring, Tom, and I haven't worked for 6 or 8 months, and I nearly died twice. And Patrick was there at the hospital every day for 4 or 5 hours a day, every day, all spring, till I actually got out of there. And no, Patrick Kinsella is a true friend. Well, we run for profit. I mean, actually, obviously this year we're probably one of the more successful outfits. I think we've won 42 races as of today, either here or Alberta or Washington or something, which is a pretty good year for any owners to have. And obviously this year is a profitable year. Not every year is a profitable year. We try to run our horses where they belong or where they can win, right? I mean, it's a costly business, and I always say to Troy, run them where they can win, right? Like, I don't care where you run them, just run them where they can win. It's too costly of a game to be a bunch of also-rans, and we're pretty successful in, he's good at placing the horses where they can win. We got lucky, we bought a couple of the horses out of New York and a couple out of Kentucky, and they've turned out to be good investments. I think Sir Galavic's probably the best horse I've ever owned. He ran off and won the Derby trial for fun, and I think he ran the fastest time here in about 10 years, or longer. And you know, he ran the last 16th of a mile in 6 and 1, and that's Grade 1 time. And unfortunately in the Derby, he had a terrible trip, and he never did get turned loose till about, it was way too late. The other horse got away from us. But I think if he had got through, it'd have been a horse race. I'm not saying that my horse was better than theirs, but it would have been a good horse race.
We have footage of that. He was in more traffic than someone on Oak Street on commuter hour.
You bet he was. He was in a lot of traffic, but he's a pretty nice horse. As I say, I think of the hundreds of horses I owned, he's the best horse that I've ever had part of.
This year, you and several other owners did something that I've never heard of, and I've been in this all my life. You guys kicked in money to make the purses bigger. Why?
Well, first of all, as you know, the rules are going to change that you don't get black type if a purse is under 50 grand. And, I mean, things were, you know, Great Canadian are trying their best, and they weren't having, they're like the last people. I mean, Hastings with losing attendance, horses down, they weren't doing all that well. Well, I thought, let's try to help them out, get through till we get slot machines, etc., and it'll pay dividends. And so not only I, but a lot of other people kicked in and knocked the pots up to 50,000 to keep the black type on them, and even though it doesn't come into next year, but it was our turn to put something back in. That's what life's all about. We're building an off-track betting site here. To me, it's a business opportunity. There's now that there's common pooling, right? You can bet directly into the U.S. tracks. We're 100 yards here from the U.S. border. There's a big advantage for a U.S. person to come over to Canada and play. The dollar's even, right? You can bet right into Santa Anita and win $1 million pick six. And there's no tax here in Canada for capital gains. So it is a big advantage. And that's probably the, you know, what a guy does with his money when he leaves here is none of my business. But to me, it's a big opportunity. And that's why we're doing it. And it's going to be a really high-end turf club type facility, and it'll be the best there is around here for sure. Horse racing, I think, because of its traditions, will always be around for forever, I think. You know, there's not enough horses on the West Coast. The East Coast seem to have a bigger abundance of horses, you know, like even Gulfstream and New York, they're always running 12, 14 horse fields, where other than maybe Santa Anita and Hollywood, the other West Coast tracks are, there just isn't enough numbers, and there isn't enough numbers here at Hastings. But I think with the slots in and ambition going up, I mean, people are going to, you know, when the pots go up, I think they're going to make a purse adjustment announcement pretty quick, and the purse is going to be up again next year, and we'll get some more people in, and away we'll go again. It's, it always has, I mean, horse racing, they raced on Granville Street or Howe Street or something, you know, before 1800 and something. Horse racing is something that's tradition, and the tradition will carry on.
Don't go away. The Sport of Kings will be right back.
Now it's time for our Racing Across the Nation segment. This is where we show to you, the viewers, some of the outstanding races, horses, and jockeys who will perhaps be competing in next week's Breeders' Cup. First up, we take you to Keeneland Racetrack in Lexington, Kentucky for the $550,000 Queen Elizabeth Stakes 2. It's for 2-year-old fillies. They're going 1 mile and an eighth. Now, among the youngsters you possibly will be watching in next week's Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, will be the 2-year-old champion Dream of Anna, who happens to also be in this race.
Dreaming of Anna has turned back every challenge so far. She leads it again by 2.5 lengths. Sharp Susan second, Coquerel third, Street Sounds, then Bit of Whimsy and Costume. Past the 8th pole, Dreaming of Anna leading Coquerel. Bit of Whimsy runs on toward the rail. Bit of Whimsy coming toward the inside. Dreaming of Anna, Bit of Whimsy is moving very fast. Bit of Whimsy for Javier Castellano to pull the mild upset in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. Bit of Whimsy wins it by 2.5 lengths from Dreaming of Anna second. A photo for show.
Next off, we're visiting Belmont Park, New York for the $100,000 Althena Stakes. It's for older fillies and mares, where the eventual winner will be hoping for a last chance to get into next week's Breeders' Cup Distaff.
And now they streak past the quarter pole. It's criminologist Fantastic Cheryl and Dance Away Capote. The early leader, Beautiful Danielle's back to fourth. 1 furlong to go. Criminologist stretching out for that final furlong. Criminologist pulls away now by 3. I'm in Love moves through on the inside. Fantastic Cheryl and Dance Away Capote. Criminologist finishes to win by 4.5 on the wire. I'm in Love was second. Close for third. Dance Away Capote or Cheryl.
And now, to get you up to date with all the happenings in and around the track, let's saddle up with our own Stephanie Mercier.
Last Saturday was the Ballerina Breeders' Cup and featured a small field of 4 going for a purse of $125,000. It featured the Queen of Hastings, Monashee, putting her 10 consecutive stakes race victory streak on the line, and it was a happy and sad day as Monashee romped home for the win and for her final race at Hastings. Let's watch Monashee's final dance and hear from her connections as to what's in store for her future.
Monashee shows the way now by 1.5 lengths from the outside. It slew past, penning in at the rail, Lady Raj, and 5.5 or 6 for the back is Salita's Dream. As they head to the clubhouse turn, she's just loping along. Monashee gets the half in 49 flat. It's Monashee now leading it by 1.5 lengths. Slew past on the outside, second by a neck. Lady Raj is third by 5, and Salita's Dream is the trailer. As they turn for the backstretch with Monashee still on the lead. Monashee by a tight length. Slew past now takes second by a clear length. It's Lady Raj in third by 6, and now Salita's Dream. Quincy Welsh asks her for a little run. Past the 5/16 to go. 6 furlongs and a comfortable 1:14 and 2, and Monashee Wilson high in the irons has the lead by 1.5 lengths. Lady Raj going to take a crack at her as they get set to turn for home. Slew past and Salita's Dream. As they turn for home now, it's Monashee by 2. Lady Raj slew past Salita's Dream. Still under a hand ride. It's Monashee by 1.5 lengths. Lady Raj trying hard. It'll be sad to see her go, but Monashee wins 11 in a row. Lady Raj second, slew past third, Salita's Dream fourth.
Well, you know, it's never easy, Tom. It's a lot of hard work that comes to every race, and every trainer goes through that with their horse. It's just a really nice feeling when you bring a horse over that's so sound and so ready to run and so happy doing it.
It's a bittersweet day today, because I have to give her up, and it'll be her last start here, which is too bad, but that's the way it goes. It's going to be tough to find a new one to replace her, if you ever do find one to replace her, for them and me both. But it was a good run while we had her, and she showed what a champion she is.
I think you feel like we all do as far as a Sovereign Award. Do you have to go back there to win, or do you think her record proves itself?
Well, I think her record speaks for itself at this stage, Tom. I don't normally feel that way, and probably I actually kind of feel like going back to Toronto is maybe a risk for us, because I think she deserves the Sovereign, and if for any reason she went back there and got beat, we wouldn't get it. And of course, if we did go back there and win, I'm sure we would get it. So it's probably more of a risk than it is anything else. But the sportsman in us, we are Canadian, it is a Sovereign Award. It would be fun to do.
Congratulations for a nice mare.
Oh, it was a great ride, Tom, and thank you for all your support through the ride.
Now that the season is drawing to a close, new and familiar faces are showing up in the Hastings Jocks Room. Rider Quincy Welch spends most of the season in Alberta at Stampede and Northlands Parks, but has made his way west for the remainder of the season.
It's been great so far. I've won a few, and the weather's been cooperating.
Have you noticed any differences between here and the Albertan tracks?
Well, it's a lot more speed here. It's a little less surface, so a lot faster fractions. That's primarily the biggest difference.
Another recent addition this month is jockey Shannon Beauregard, who got her first win at Hastings last Saturday on Zip the Bright. We asked Shannon a little bit about herself.
I was riding in Edmonton and Calgary.